Hello and welcome. I'm Ijoma Onyato. Tonight, Code of Conduct Tribunal finds Justice Walter Onnoghen guilty of false assets declaration, former CJN to forfeit monies in 5 bank accounts and barred from public office for 10 years. Socio-Economic Rights and Accountability Project, Rights Code of Conduct Bureau, demands details of assets declaration of presidents and state governors from 1999 to date. President Buhari assents to bill stipulating 30,000 naira as new national minimum wage for workers in the country. And details emerge from Special Counsel Robert Mueller's report on investigations into alleged Russian meddling in the 2016 US presidential election.
On Business News tonight, President Muhammadu Buhari describes India as Nigeria's biggest trading partner and calls for closer and stronger economic partnership between both countries.
On sports news tonight, Chelsea, Valencia and Arsenal qualify for the semi-finals of the UEFA Europa League.
And from Abuja, more APC lawmakers in the House of Representatives kick against zoning of the position of Speaker in the 9th Assembly to the southwest.
The Code of Conduct Tribunal has convicted the suspended Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Walter Onnoghen, of 6 counts of false declaration of assets. The chairman of the tribunal, Mr. Danladi Umar, held that the prosecution has proven beyond reasonable doubt that the suspended Chief Justice breached the Code of Conduct for public officers. Mr. Umar ordered that Justice Onnoghen vacate office as Chief Justice of Nigeria and banned him from holding any public office for the next 10 years. He also ordered that Justice Onnoghen forfeit all the 5 accounts he did not declare between 2009 and 2015. Our correspondent Amaka Okafo reports.
The travails of Justice Walter Onnoghen, which began a little over 3 months ago at the Code of Conduct Tribunal, has come to an end with his conviction by the tribunal. Even though he stated in his final address that the essential elements of the charges against him were not proven by the prosecution, the tribunal thought otherwise. The chairman of the tribunal held that the tribunal, having considered the submission of the prosecution and its witnesses, the statements and evidence before the tribunal finds them worthy of consideration and more than enough to hold the view that the defendant has contravened the provisions of Code of Conduct for public officers. Mr. Umar said it is contained in Exhibit 6, which is the cautionary statement of Justice Onnoghen to the Code of Conduct Bureau, that he forgot to declare the said accounts. Mr. Danladi held that the tribunal believes the facts that are before it, especially since the defendant could not disprove it. And having resolved all the issues against the defendant, the chairman of the tribunal found the suspended Chief Justice guilty of all the charges brought against him. Earlier, Mr. Umar refused 2 other applications challenging the jurisdiction of the tribunal and another which accused him of bias. He held that the ruling of the tribunal in the case of the federal government versus Justice Sylvester Nguta, relied upon by the defendant, was done via a narrow interpretation of the law and that the tribunal is at liberty to overrule itself. He also held that the facts in Ngajiwa versus the state does not apply in this matter.
Before this day, on the 23rd of January, the same judgment had been passed before now,
Very well, correct.
removing the Chief Justice of Nigeria without a fair hearing.
Yes.
The judgment has been given, and we are okay with the judgment.
The judgment delivered by the tribunal has brought to an end the trial of Justice Walter Onnoghen at the Code of Conduct Tribunal. It remains to be seen how the presidency will react to the judgment just delivered by the tribunal and how the appeal court and the Supreme Court will react to it, as the Chief Justice, or should I say the suspended Chief Justice, has vowed to appeal this judgment. Amaka Okafo, Channels Television News.
Let's now look at the journey of Justice Onnoghen in the trial up to today. Now here's the timeline. On January 7, 2019, a civil society group, Anti-Corruption and Research-Based Data Initiative, petitions the Code of Conduct Bureau, listing a number of allegations against Justice Onnoghen, notably non-declaration of assets. January 12, 2019, the CCB announces that it had filed 6 counts against Justice Onnoghen at the Code of Conduct Tribunal, and on January 14th, trial begins at the CCT with Justice Onnoghen absent. The federal government on January 22 asked Justice Onnoghen to step aside from office. January 25, Justice Onnoghen is suspended and replaced by Ibrahim Tanko Muhammad. Justice Onnoghen sues the federal government over his suspension on January 29, while the next day, January 30, he loses his bid to stop the CCT trial. The CCT orders Onnoghen's arrest on February 13, and then on February 15, Justice Onnoghen finally appears at the tribunal and pleaded not guilty. On April 1, Justice Onnoghen opens his defense at the tribunal and closes on April 3. He reportedly resigns as Chief Justice of Nigeria on April 4, and on April 15, 2019, the tribunal fixes Thursday, April 18th, to deliver judgment on his trial. Meanwhile, Justice Onnoghen has filed an appeal challenging his conviction and sentencing by the tribunal led by Danladi Umar. In an appeal to the Court of Appeal, the suspended Chief Justice of Nigeria, who had resigned about a week ago, is challenging the judgment and the ruling of the tribunal on 16 grounds. He is also seeking an order of court that the tribunal lacked jurisdiction to entertain the case and that it ought to have recused itself from the proceedings before it. He is further asking for an order to set aside his conviction and forfeiture of assets, and also an order to discharge and acquit him. Some of the grounds of appeal include that the lower tribunal erred in law when it held that he confessed to the charges framed by admission that he failed to declare his assets. Justice Onnoghen is contending that he did not admit to non-declaration of assets as a Justice of the Supreme Court, but only said he did not declare his assets in 2009, which he eventually did in 2010. Today's judgment convicting Justice Onnoghen is a climax of a trial which started about 3 months ago, precisely on January the 14th, 2019. In this next report, our judiciary correspondent, Shola Shoyele, chronicles the events that led to today's judgment.
It started with a petition written by a civil society group called Anti-Corruption and Research-Based Data Initiative. The petition, which was dated 7th January 2019, was addressed to the chairman of the Code of Conduct Tribunal. The petitioners say that the petition was based on alarming facts, which indicates that the leader of the country's judicial branch is embroiled in suspected official corruption, financial crimes, and breaches of the Code of Conduct Bureau and Tribunal Act. Some of the alarming facts, according to the petitioners, were that Justice Onnoghen made 5 different cash deposits of $10,000 each into one of his bank accounts on a single day in March 2011. On June 7, 2011, he similarly made another 4 cash deposits of $10,000 each, an exercise which he repeated on June 27 and 28, 2011, when he made another set of 5 separate cash deposits of $10,000 each and another 4 separate cash deposits of $10,000 each. Was that Justice Onnoghen did not comply with the provisional requirement of declaring his assets every 4 years. The group also alleged that Justice Onnoghen's Code of Conduct Bureau forms for 2014 and 2016 were dated and filed on the same day. Both forms were received in December 2016 after he had been sworn in as acting CJN. In the end, the petition alleged that his financial transactions were not justifiable by his lawful remuneration at all material times. On the 10th of January, a day after the tribunal received the petition, these facts had been reduced into a 6-count charge. And in a move never before seen in the history of Nigeria, the arraignment of the Chief Justice of Nigeria was fixed for Monday, the 14th of January. But Justice Onnoghen did not show up in court for the arraignment. He failed to show up again for the next hearing on January 22nd. 4 days later, on the 26th of January, President Muhammadu Buhari suspended him from office. Despite his absence in court, Justice Onnoghen had a response to the petition. He says that he forgot to make a declaration of his assets in 2009 after the expiration of his 2005 declaration. He also says that the need to declare his assets anew after his November 2016 appointment as acting CJN made him to realize this mistake, and so the two forms were made on the same day to also cover the period in default. On the foreign-denominated accounts he failed to declare, Justice Onnoghen simply said he believed the accounts were not open when he made his declaration. Many looked forward to how he would prove this in court, but despite indicating that he would call 3 defense witnesses, Justice Onnoghen only called 1 witness when he eventually opened his defense. A 60-year-old driver, Lawal Busari, who testified as the sole defense witness, had told the tribunal how he drove his bus to the CCB office. A 60-year-old driver, Lawal Busari, who testified as the sole defense witness, had told the tribunal how he drove his bus to the Code of Conduct Bureau office in 2010 to obtain the assets declaration form. The defense said with the testimony, it sought to puncture the prosecution's claim that Justice Onnoghen did not declare his assets from 2005 to 2016. In their submissions before the tribunal, his lawyers said that his response to the petition was not a confessional statement. They quoted Section 3D of the Code of Conduct Bureau Act, which empowers the Bureau to receive complaints about non-compliance and refer same to the tribunal. The section also has a proviso that where the person concerned makes a written admission of breach or non-compliance, no reference shall be made to the tribunal. They also cited a judgment of the Court of Appeal Lagos, which held in the trial of another judge, Justice Nganjiwa, that a disciplinary decision of the NJC was the condition precedent for moving against a judicial officer. Justice Onnoghen's lawyers concluded that the tribunal lacked the jurisdiction to proceed with the matter. Today's judgment convicting Justice Onnoghen is clearly not the end of the matter. Justice Onnoghen has already filed his notice of appeal, and this is one case that would no doubt go all the way to the Supreme Court. Shola Shoyeli, Channels Television News.
Let's get a bit more perspective on today's judgment. I'm now being joined on the news at 10 by a senior advocate of Nigeria and the chairman, NBA section on public interest and development law, Dr. Paul Ananaba. Thanks a lot for joining us.
Thank you.
10. We've had so many interpretations of what has happened today. What's your response to the judgment?
Well, in the first place, it shows that, again, there is due process in Nigeria. Contrary to what people think and say, we have laws in this country. It's a bit sentimental, and you have people lined up on the two sides of it. It shows that no matter what your position is, you can still be subject to the rule of law. And this is just a decision of the CCT. There's an appeal court. I'm happy, and I can see that there's an appeal. The Court of Appeal will review whether the CCT was right or wrong. And it calls for both, even those in the election petitions and all other parts of life in this country, we can trust the judiciary.
Okay, looking at the CCT's grounds, they talked about the fact that he was not able to prove where the money in the 5 accounts came from. Some are saying, well, he was being tried for non-declaration of assets, not talking about how much money was there and why it was not there. It's a bit confusing.
Yes, I'm not going to sit and appeal on the decision of CCT. My personal perspective, so that's not what the issues are. Each Nigerian will say what he feels like. It could range from what is the religion, what part of the country is he from, what this, what that. But the point is, the CCT proceedings has come to an end. The tribunal has given its judgment, and that judgment is being appealed upon. The Court of Appeal is in their court now to review the proceeding of the CCT. And if this is a major test case for the CCT and for public officers and primarily judicial officers.
I know you said the CCT's work is done. And
exactly.
Then,
and the point I'm making is so that even other judges and other public officers will know that it doesn't end with them. They could be subjected to legal proceedings, trials, and all that.
Well, sorry, just talking about the fact that, yes, you said the job is done and he's gone on appeal.
Yes.
One of his grounds of appeal is that same matter of jurisdiction. Some people say it's after the fact,
that's
but
what I'm
he's
saying.
still talking about it.
I'm not going to sit on an appeal on that. I'm not going to make prejudicial comments. Essentially, he has filed up to 16 grounds of appeal, and the Court of Appeal will look at it. And that's what we are saying. All the arms of government, every sector of this country and economy, let us look up to the judiciary. The judiciary still holds that beacon of hope. The CJN can now see that he also has to trust in the judiciary itself. And there should be no demonstrations, no riots, no threats, nothing. We should look up to the judiciary. Today, it is Justice Onnoghen. Tomorrow, it could be another judge. So, due process should be followed. The courts should uphold justice to the letter so that we would have set a proper precedent for the future. All right. Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Dr. Paul Ananaba, thanks for sharing those thoughts with us on the news at 10 tonight. Thank you. And in part 2, after the break, SERAP asked CCB to release details of assets declaration made by presidents and state governors from 1999 to date. That's all in a moment. Do join us again.